Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. It is December 5th, 2018. And folks, a lot of you by now know that there was a magnitude 7.6 earthquake that struck just off of the coast of New Caledonia. And the magnitude 7.6 was very, very shallow, only at a depth of approximately 10 kilometers reported by the USGS. Now, I know a lot of folks were very, very worried about tsunamis. Well, first things first, folks. Whenever you have these types of earthquakes, this earthquake was basically a slip. And a slip is kind of like two of the plates rubbing against each other and creating the earthquake. Now, the 7.6 was rather large. In order to get a tsunami, you would actually have to have an uplift on the sea floor. And thank God for all of the people in this region, this was not the case. So there's a few things that I want to show all of you real quick. Let me go ahead and jump over to these other photographs. Just the other day, I had created a few posts for the Planet X News Facebook page and my personal Facebook page. And all of you know that I monitor everything that goes on with the sun, our weather, the earth, and Planet X investigations and research. And I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And, I have Dr. Albers to consult with if there is something that I'm not sure of. But I do follow everything 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whenever we see these very large coronal holes opening up on the sun, and folks, this has been happening for quite a long time. However, it's been getting more and more intense since 2016. And again, I've warned about this, and now over the last year, it seems that more and more people are waking up to the science, waking up to what they're seeing in the sky, and they're also waking up to seeing the very drastic changes in their weather and the drastic changes in earthquake activity as well as volcanic activity. Whenever we see these very large coronal holes opening up and they are Earth-facing, such as what you're seeing here on your screen, those very heavily charged particles that are streaming out of these dark regions, the coronal holes, those heavily charged particles make their way all the way to the Earth. Now, it does take a few days. They're traveling 93 million miles from the sun to our planet. Those heavily charged particles do take a little bit of time to penetrate all the way through the Earth's crust, all the way through the mantle, and then down to the core. That process, again, does take a little bit of time. So whenever I see these very large coronal holes opening up, you can guarantee that within 3 to 5 days, sometimes 7 days, we will start to see the seismic activity picking up. And I warned everybody that this was going to occur. Going back to November 30th, we had a small coronal mass ejection. But combined with that coronal mass ejection and the increase in the solar wind, and the velocity of the solar wind hasn't been intense. It has actually been kind of moderate. But still, those heavily charged particles penetrate all the way through to the Earth's crust. That increases the pressure, increases temperature, and therefore it puts that pressure on our tectonic plates, therefore causing earthquakes. We all saw what just happened in Alaska. Something very unusual about what happened in Alaska is after that initial earthquake, it seemed, well, it didn't seem, it's a fact, that all of these aftershocks were moving northward in a pattern towards the North Pole. And I've been watching that very, very closely. I also saw some video from people that live in the region, and there were large groups of people playing around on the section of highway that was completely destroyed, actually allowing their children to jump down in between those very large crevices that were opened up. And that is very, very dangerous because of all of the aftershocks. So, you know, folks, if any of you are listening to this that live in these regions where you have earthquakes, don't do that. Don't let your children crawl around inside of, broken roadways. If any aftershock would have occurred and those sections of roadway would have moved, you would have watched your child literally be crushed to death and die. So let's kind of use some common sense here. I saw some videos of people laughing and, having a good old time, but the situation is very serious and things are going to progress, but not in a good way. They're going to progress in a bad way. So I put this information out several days ago, and we're going to go ahead and move to the a current warning that I put out there, and this was just yesterday. And once again, I outlined the coronal hole region that was Earth facing, and it expanded in about 24 hours. When you see these expansions in the coronal hole, you're definitely looking at an increase in seismic activity. And then lo and behold, well, what do we have? A very, very strong earthquake in the South Pacific. And once again, it is a very good thing that that was not any type of an uplift of an earthquake, because that tsunami would have crushed New Caledonia and the northern parts of New Zealand, and it would have definitely crashed into the shores of Australia. So we're going to go ahead and jump into another picture here. And this is fresh. This is showing you how these waves of earthquake energy can travel. Now, we're looking at the earthquake zone right here. All of this energy did make its way all the way to the United States. This earthquake, as well as the Alaskan earthquake, rang straight through the entire Earth. Now, I've prepared a short video, and I'm going to be showing you how these earthquakes ring straight through the Earth, and they literally set off seismic devices around the world. And these are very, very strong quakes, folks. They're not going to end. Sooner or later, we are going to probably see earthquakes that are stretching above and beyond magnitude 8. If those earthquakes are on land, they are going to do massive amounts of destruction. We know that for a fact. So as you can see, the earthquake generates its seismic activity, and it will set off seismic devices. And this region is the region I picked for the United States, and I'm going to show you how these seismic devices go off. So we're going to go ahead and jump out of here real quick. And I've prepared this video. And this right here in the very beginning, this was on November 30th. And this is going to show you filament release from the sun and the coronal mass ejection. And again, folks, this coronal mass ejection wasn't that big, but it was damn near Earth facing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play this. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to go ahead and just back it up, and I'll let this play, and I'll narrate through this. So you can see the coronal mass ejection right there on the sun, and it was pretty well Earth facing. That does take a little bit of time to get to the Earth, but I don't think that that played that big of a role in the seismic activity. What creates the seismic activity, once again, is the heavily charged particles streaming from the coronal holes. Okay, that much is a fact. This is a current look at the SDO, and the reason why I've included this is to, oops, let me go ahead and back up there a little bit. I'll just stop it here real quick. And the reason why I'm showing you this now is you can see these regions. This coronal hole, it is pretty damn massive. And all of these heavily charged particles, they're literally wide open and streaming from the surface of the sun. We are located, the Earth, about right where my cursor is. We're just slightly below the equator of the sun. So we're about right here. So you can see all of this area where we see the openings, all of that solar wind is going to be flowing straight towards Earth for many, many days. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull this back up. One second, let me get back here real quick. And we're going to take a look at this coronal mass ejection. And again, it wasn't too bad, but, bad enough. It will definitely play a role in the earthquake activity and increasing radiation levels here on Earth. So this was just a look at the Solar Dynamics Observatory, showing you the coronal hole. And right after this, we're going to take a look at the solar wind. And as you can see right up here, this wave just missed the Earth, but we do get some residual effect from it. Now, we are at the point of December 5th today, and you can see this wave from the coronal hole is now going to impact Earth again. So this is an ongoing process. We will see small breaks in the seismic activity, but as long as this continues, the earthquake activity in larger magnitude will continue. Now, this is just a zoomed in version, and this is going to show you that wave right there was probably the wave that caused the earthquake in Alaska. And then here we go. We have another one, and you can see this is Earth right here. That is December 5th. That's today. So that wave is impacting the Earth now. So let's count 3 days, maybe 5 days. Around the 8th or the 9th of December, start looking out for some larger earthquakes. Now, they can occur sooner, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, this is going to show you today's earthquake, the 7.6 down in the South Pacific near New Caledonia. You are literally looking at all of the seismic devices. They are all going off. And this is here in the United States, thousands of miles away from the epicenter of this earthquake. And you can see they are all going off in kind of a wave. Now, I have several different versions of this model, and this is coming from Iris. This is a very, very good website to get in-depth information on earthquakes. So as you can see, all of these seismic devices, they are all going off. And this is clearly showing you how the energy of these earthquakes move through our entire planet. Now, with that type of increased energy, you can guarantee that sooner or later, you're going to have additional earthquakes that are going to be set off by these bigger quakes. And as you can see, look at Southern California. I mean, it's going to town. Those seismic devices in the Southern California region, they are just going crazy. All the way across the country to where I live in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area here. As you see this graph below progress forward, you're going to start to see all of the seismic devices going crazy. They are picking up the energy of that earthquake in the South Pacific. Again, this can cause other earthquakes, especially where we have sensitive fault zones, such as the San Andreas Fault or the Cascadia Fault Zone up around Northern California, Oregon, and the state of Washington. And again, we still have to keep a vigilant watch, well, probably for the next couple of days. But as those days pass, we are going to be right in the middle of another impact from the solar wind, coming from the sun, coming from the coronal holes. And a lot of people ask, well, why is this happening? Well, for the last 3 years, nonstop, myself and Dr. Albers have been preaching the word and trying to help people understand that everything that you're seeing now, this is not normal. Okay, there is a direct interaction with these Planet X objects, as we call them, or stellar cores. And these are the cores of dead stars. It's not planet Nibiru, folks. For a lot of you that are stuck on this Nibiru mythological story, that's all that it is. Okay, scientifically, we have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that these cores, these dead stars, have made their way into our solar system. They've been coming into our solar system for a long, long time. They have been basically captured by our sun. They are now part of our solar system. Mainstream science and astronomy, they're just not going to come out and tell you that, because that would change everything. Rewriting the science books worldwide. Plus, on top of that, maybe creating a worldwide panic. Why would that happen? Because people don't have the general understanding of what is happening. And folks, today is the day that all of you should really start to think about some type of preparation, protecting yourself and your family, making sure that you have enough food and water. Get that bug out bin. I have very, very large plastic bins. Picked them up at Walmart years ago. I have those bins stocked full of canned goods. Also just, a few pots, pans. I have a small camping Coleman stove that runs on propane. And I have 24 small propane tanks to utilize that little camping stove in order to cook some food. If we're without electricity, if you're without water, well, just think about it. You're going to have a very bad time. And there's no idea when utilities would even be restored. We saw what happened in Puerto Rico last year during the hurricane season. It took almost a year to restore power. We've seen what has happened in California with all of these so-called wildfires. We don't see the government rushing to your aid, even though they have the money and they have the resources. It is just a sign of the times. And what you see here is how this earthquake in New Caledonia affected all of the seismic devices in Alaska. Now, considering that Alaska just had a pretty heavy earthquake, probably fragile, we know all of the aftershocks are occurring, and we will probably see additional aftershocks over magnitude 5. And at that point in time, folks, I wouldn't even consider those to be aftershocks. I would consider those to be full-blown earthquakes. And again, if any of you that live in Alaska and you're listening to this now, stay the hell off of these destruction zones. Do not walk over these broken roads. And again, don't let your children play around this area. You shouldn't even be anywhere near those areas. So once again, we're back to the very beginning of what I wanted to show you, and this was the filament release, the coronal mass ejection that occurred on the 30th. And here we are, December 5th, and the Earth is feeling the results of what is occurring on our sun. And our sun is becoming very, very weak as time goes on with the interaction between Planet X, the stellar cores, and also the threat of going into this so-called solar grand minimum. That's definitely going to put additional stress on the sun and the Earth. So again, folks, it is time to wake up the masses, preach to people that you associate with on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, and try to get them to open up their eyes, open up their minds, and try to educate them on what is truly happening. I'm going to go ahead and jump out of this video, and we'll get out of this picture here. And what I wanted to go ahead and bring up and show you guys, we'll just go ahead and expand this screen, and we're going to take a look at the radiation levels. Just go ahead and expand this. We'll move this over here. And I've gone back to November 30th, and this will play out up to today. And I'm going to go ahead and back it up just a little bit so we can start over. So I'm just going to freeze it right here. So you can see we're on the 29th and the 30th. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull this cursor down. And you can see all of the heavily charged electrons all the way around the Earth. And yes, red means bad. Over here on your gauge to the right, it goes all the way up to this red color, this deep red color here. It's only been over the last, I'd say maybe 6 to 9 months that we've seen this other color on this model. And I would probably have to say that this is a more intense rating than what we see out here. It's just not on the scale over here. So I'll go ahead and I'll let this play out, and you can see how these heavily charged electrons just literally encompass the entire Earth. That will definitely heat up our atmosphere, heat up our ionosphere, and you wonder why we're seeing all of these heavy downpours of rain and just this absolutely insane weather worldwide. Every country on this planet is being affected in one way or another. Very tragic situations occurring over in the Middle East with torrential downpours of rain, massive amounts of hail, the flooding of the entire desert outside of the country of Saudi Arabia. And then the next day, they're snowboarding down the sand dunes. Why? Because it snowed in the desert. Let's just think about that. So you can definitely see that things are heating up for the Earth. And again, that is not going to change anytime soon. We'll bring up the magnetopause and you will be able to see, let me just go ahead and expand this a little bit more, and you'll be able to see the impacts affecting our shield. And they weren't too bad over the last couple of days, but bad enough. Now, you can't see the actual strength of our magnetic field or our magnetopause on this model. But as the sun loses energy, so does our magnetic field. So does our protection. So that is another big problem. As the sun goes to sleep, so does our magnetic field. So does our protection. Therefore, the more effects that we see from the solar wind, the more deadly the effects are going to be on our planet. And that's pretty basic to understand. So once again, as the sun goes to sleep during a solar minimum, on top of the effects of these stellar cores orbiting our star, they will affect the sun. The sun will go to sleep more and more and more. Climate chaos will be something that you see every single day. It will become a general part of your life. That is a fact, and you are already seeing it. Let's move into the solar wind model here. Let me go ahead and stretch this out for everybody real quick. Get a bigger view of it. Now, the solar wind, the velocity hasn't really been that high. Kind of normal, kind of moderate. And that's just a telltale sign that, yeah, the sun is losing energy. It is going to sleep. But one of the bigger problems that this lower solar wind speed, it's almost like it gives these heavily charged particles even more time to sink into the earth and cause even bigger earthquakes. It's just a theory of mine, but if you kind of think about it, if you send the solar wind blazing past the earth at millions of miles per hour, instead of what we're seeing here, lower speeds, the impact is quick. Whereas you have these lower velocities, it seems like these heavily charged particles have even more time to sink deeper and cause bigger earthquakes. We've obviously been seeing that over the course of the last 6 months. Let's take a look at the magnetosphere itself, because once again, quite erratic. And you will see these black lines, these magnetic field lines, and you're going to see them reaching all over the place. And the reason why is because they are being affected by another magnetic field. Just not the magnetic field of the sun, but another magnetic field. Another stronger magnetic field. Oh, Watson, what do you think that might be? Well, that would be the magnetic field influence by what? Other stellar core objects in our solar system orbiting our sun. So we're getting down to points in science where I'm trying to make it very easy for all of you to understand why this is happening and how it is happening. And again, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. We will not outlive what is happening. Why do you think you have governments really kind of scrambling to completely upset their countries? We've all seen what has just occurred in France. Excuse me. We've all seen what has occurred in the UK. We've all seen what has occurred in Spain. Okay, these things are now happening in multiple countries around the world. And the governments are the main cause. 150%. That's not going to end either. And it's very sad. Very, very sad. So this is what we have going for us here on planet Earth over the course of the next couple of days, folks. Things are not going to get any better anytime soon. One thing I want to go ahead and point out, folks, listen, if you guys do not have the Planet X News website bookmarked, please do so, okay? I see a lot of times people asking questions under Facebook posts. Hey, where can I find this? Hey, where can I find that? And as I've mentioned before, If you go to the planetxnews.org website, I have a list right down here. It's about halfway down the page on the right side, labeled research links. And all of these links, this is what I go through, all of this down here, all of these links, this is what I go through each and every day. But normally I go through all of this about 3 times a day, keeping track of everything that is going on around the world. Now, I have a pretty big Facebook following, and I put as much information as I possibly can up there so all of you guys can share it. And I'm going to be quite honest, over the past couple of months, I've seen a lot of people from different countries around the world stepping up to the plate, doing their part, sharing the information. And that's great. That's a beautiful thing. That's what we need. We need that network now. Not only do we need it for ourselves, but it's a great opportunity to share this information on your social media accounts. That way, people that are friends with you, maybe they see something and, they say, oh, well, what is that? Oh, can you tell me a little bit more about that, Scott? Well, here you go. The avenues of communication are now open. And you grab that person's ear and bend it and let them know what is happening. Bring them into the truth community. That's what it's all about. So all of the information for these links, it's all right here, folks. All you got to do is click on it. We can take a look real quick at the CME tracker. And this will show you a progressive model going back from the 30th of November to, I think it's going to stretch out to about the 9th of December. And here's the Earth right there, the little yellow dot right where my cursor is. And as the sun rotates, which it does, every 28 days, it's in a full rotation. And you can see that wave coming from the sun, and that would have been the coronal mass ejection that occurred on November 30th. And then you could judge the amount of time that takes to get from the sun to our planet. So normally you're looking at 3 to 5 days, maybe even sometimes 7 days. It all depends on the strength of the coronal mass ejection. Basically, its velocity, how fast it's moving. Normally, it takes about 3 to 5 days for that impact to occur. And here's a side model over here, and here's a little bit more of a blown up model right here. So this is what is happening today on our beautiful planet Earth as it's being ripped apart from the situations that are occurring out there by our sun. There are also a lot of articles up here. All of our videos appear right here for myself and Dr. Albers. And a lot of great articles, folks. I post several articles per day. Very, very interesting information. And yesterday, all of a sudden, all these science articles are coming out. Again, kind of like soft disclosure about asteroids, meteors, things of that nature. And we are seeing an increase once again in near-Earth objects, asteroids, meteors. And here's the thing, folks. Just based on the laws of probability, sooner or later, we're going to get smacked by one of these objects. Sooner or later. It's going to occur. That's a fact. The governments, China, Japan, Russia, the US, they've all been engaged for quite some time in figuring out ways to deflect these objects or destroy these objects. just did an article yesterday about how they sent that space probe out to Bennu, which is a very, very large asteroid. I know I did an article here, or I think I did a video on it. Let me just pan down here real quick. Here it is. You could actually watch the videos. You could watch the videos right here on the website, or you could go to our YouTube channels and check it out. But, you know, why do you think they're sending these probes out there? You know, the Japanese sent a probe out to this big, gigantic rock. The United States has sent out a probe. What do you think they're doing? Well, some say that they're, you know, taking samples, and there's some, you know, some talk about mining some of these asteroids. I think they're up to something else. But who knows? Who am I to say, you know? But it's kind of suspicious. I think everything that NASA does is suspicious. And like I said before, folks, pay attention to what NASA is doing. Sometimes it's interesting, but sometimes you could read between the lines and you could see the lies. Yeah, it seems like sometimes they're trying to fool us. That's a fact. But listen, folks, stay vigilant in what you're doing. Continue to share all of the information from Planet X News and others. Try to wake people up. That's our main goal. And if you are interested in the information that you're viewing now, then you are awake. But we will all continue to learn together. One big, massive, worldwide team. One big, massive network. And also remember, folks, sooner or later, they're going to shut that internet off. And that avenue of communication is going to be gone. So now is the time to continue vigorously on waking others up, educating them, letting them know what is happening. Because again, it is not going to get better anytime soon. Guaranteed, not in your lifetime. This is Scott from Planet X News. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there, folks. Take care.